Okay, today I want to talk about fruit, specifically several myths that are commonly heard or written about in relating to fruit. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is fruit itself, as far as whether you should eat fruit, period. A lot of websites, a lot of other videos advise people to avoid fruit at all costs, and the reasoning usually given is that it's rich in fructose or fructose, depending on the way you want to pronounce it. Fructose, of course, is a simple sugar. Now, the problem with fructose, it's also called fruit sugar because it's abundant in most, not abundant, but it's found in most fruits. The problem with fructose is that from a biochemical point of view, it has a greater tendency than other sugars. It's classified as a monosaccharide, which means it's a single sugar. You have monosaccharide, disaccharides, which are two sugars bonded together, like sucrose is a combination of glucose and fructose. And I could go on and on. Maltose is a single sugar. The point being that fructose is actually digested differently than other sugars. It goes through a different digestive process, whereas other sugars are digested fairly rapidly through certain enzymes called saccharides, intestinal enzymes. Fructose goes through a completely different digestive pattern, having to do with a glucose carrier called GLUT5, but I don't want to get into too much technical detail. Suffice to say that fructose is absorbed slower than other sugars. Now that's pretty good from a blood glucose point of view, because the problem with most sugars is that they absorb very rapidly, and the rapid absorption of the simple sugars, like sucrose or table sugar, potentiates the release of insulin from the pancreas. Insulin, one of the functions of insulin is to basically push glucose into cells. Now, the problem with that is that in some cases, if you eat, well, in all cases, if you eat too much sugar, particularly refined forms of sugar, which meaning that sugar that's not bound to fiber in natural foods like fruits, the sugar could cause too much of an insulin reaction. The insulin will push the sugar out of the blood into cells, and you could wind up with a reactive hypoglycemia or low blood sugar, which can make you jittery, tired, sleepy, and that type of thing. And from a standpoint of body composition, having an excess release of insulin is not good, because insulin is a storage hormone. It promotes the storage of carbohydrate as glycogen in the liver and the muscles, but it also takes excess carbohydrate and stimulates fat synthesizing enzymes in lipocytes or fat cells, which basically increases the storage of fat or triglyceride in fat cells. That's a long way of saying that too much insulin makes you fat. Regardless of what you might see or hear, I mean, there's a lot of these pseudo authorities all over the internet and social media, and they talk about people who claim that insulin promotes fat gains. They call them insulin fairies, which is just laughable nonsense. Some of these people have advanced degrees, which doesn't mean jack shit, because they're wrong. Insulin is known to promote body fat accretion. Diabetics, newly diagnosed diabetics who are put on insulin therapy always gain fat initially. They always gain fat initially, even if they're not overeating an excess amount of calories. They always put on some fat when they first start using insulin. So, again, insulin, it basically turns off all the mechanisms that cause your body to release fat and use it as energy. Instead, it turns on all the mechanisms that favor fat storage. And the problem with fructose is that it tends to be, especially in excessive amounts, it tends to be converted into triglyceride fat, especially in the liver. In the liver, the fat could build up to an extent that you have a disease called non-alcoholic fatty liver. The reason they call it non-alcoholic is because in the past, most types of fatty liver were caused by an excess intake of alcohol. The problem with any type of fatty liver, whether it's related to alcohol or whether it's related to, let's say, excessive fructose consumption, is that fatty liver is a precursor for more serious liver problems, including liver cirrhosis, which is basically scar tissue forming in the liver, as well as, if it really lasts for a long time, the cirrhosis can lead to liver cancer, which of course, and liver failure, which liver failure itself requires a liver transplant in order to survive. But even without that stuff, having fatty liver is has a close association with insulin resistance, which involves the inability to properly use insulin by cells, and that causes an excessive release of insulin called hyperinsulinism that perpetuates the problems associated with insulin, such as increased body fat and more difficulty losing body fat. It's harder to lose body fat when you have a high insulin level in your blood because, again, the insulin is going to promote body fat accretion. So, but there's a couple of myths about fructose. Remember, fructose is a natural substance. In fact, as a matter of fact, they've shown in studies. Now, you look at sports drinks, and in the past, sports drinks were based on mostly kind of simple sugars like glucose. But a couple of years ago, they discovered that if they put a small amount of fructose in the sport drinks, in other words, still mostly, let's say, glucose precursors, but if they add a certain amount of a little bit of fructose, maybe 1%, the sugar or the carbohydrate in the sport drinks was taken up much faster. And the reason for that is because fructose and glucose have two different carriers that ferry them into cells. Glucose uses something called GLUT4 and a couple other that glucose, that stands for glucose carrier, whereas fructose uses GLUT5. And when you add a little bit of fructose to, let's say, the glucose-based sports drinks, the sports drinks are actually absorbed faster and more efficiently. Now, as far as a lot of these websites and these blogs and so on and so forth, and videos, they lead you to believe that fructose is a deadly poison. In fact, the body actually prefers fructose as a substrate for liver glycogen replenishment. In other words, ingested fructose replenishes depleted liver glycogen faster than glucose. And not only that, but fructose itself is not that harmful unless it's overconsumed. If it's overconsumed, then you will have probably an increase of fat in the liver, that fatty liver I spoke about earlier. And but another thing to consider is that just like any other sugar, the more physically active you are, the more fructose or fructose, whatever you want to call it. I know people are going to, write in the comments under this video, oh, he mispronounced fructose for fructose. What's wrong with the guy? We shouldn't listen to anything he says because he can't pronounce fructose. Yeah, all right, these are I'm not even going to deal with that. But anyway, the point being that that if you're physically active, this is an important point, you can eat a lot more fructose than somebody that's sedentary. The people that are in danger of fructose problems are usually inactive, sedentary people who don't walk, don't work out, don't do any type of activity. People who are active very rarely, if ever, have problems with fructose. So that I just wanted to get that stuff out of the way. And also I want to point out about talking about fruit specifically. Again, people, so-called pseudo-experts, advise people to avoid fruit, eating fruit, especially when they're trying to lose body fat, because of the notion that because fruit contains fructose, it is inherently fattening, and you should avoid fruit at all costs. That is, in a word, bullshit. The reason being that when you eat whole fruit, it comes with dietary fiber, stuff like pectin, which is a soluble fiber. What does that mean? What that means is the soluble fiber content found naturally in fruit modifies the uptake of fructose when you eat whole fruit, so the fructose does not hit you hard, like, for example, eating sugar foods. It's kind of like a time-released uptake of fructose when you eat whole fruits. Second, fruit does not contain as much fructose as popularly believed. I mean, if you believe these moronic videos telling you not to eat fruit, you would think that fruits are just packed with fructose. In fact, most fruits contain maybe 6% fructose at best. That's it. Fruit is mostly water. Most fruits are 90% or more water, and they contain the fiber that controls fructose. But let's look at a couple of other myths that are popularly told about fruit. One of them is that you should always eat fruit on an empty stomach. This was derived from a popular diet book. I just can't remember the name of it. It came out years ago. But they were telling people that you should never eat fruit with a meal, because it interferes with digestion, and it causes the if you eat fruit with a meal, the fruit will just not digest. It'll sit in your stomach and ferment, rot, and it'll cause gas, gastrointestinal distress, and other types of symptoms. Now, while it's true that the fiber in fruit does slow down the release of food in your stomach, it does not cause the food to stay there indefinitely, because there's enzymes that your body produces in abundance that can break down fruit, not the fiber. The fiber your body doesn't break down, especially the soluble fiber. What happens is that is not digested, but it does not cause gastrointestinal problems unless you eat a whole ton of it. And what does happen is that the soluble fiber from the fruit travels into your colon, large intestine, where it acts as food for the large variety of various organisms, such as bacteria, fungi, collectively known as the intestinal microbiome, which is incredibly important for health. I've talked about it many times in my Applied Metabolics publication. I will be talking about it again, because there's new studies showing that maintaining a proper balance of organisms in the microbiome actually can help prevent brain degeneration, which is huge news, because it's something everybody who's middle-aged or above worries about, getting, Alzheimer's and all that stuff. So, but the point being that the like one of the main fibers in fruit is pectin. It slows the stomach emptying rate by around 82 minutes. And now if you didn't eat the pectin in fruit, your stomach would empty in about 70 minutes. So it's a difference of 12 minutes. So that notion that eating fruit makes your rots in your stomach and causing. But the good thing about eating fruit with a meal is that it makes you feel more full, so that you will eat less and you will take in less calories. So again, that notion is garbage. Another myth is that eating fruit before or after a meal reduces its nutrient value. According to this myth, if you eat fruit right before or after a meal, the nutrients will somehow be lost. That's based on no known science on the planet Earth. I don't know where they come up with this crap. Your stomach, when you eat a meal, it acts kind of like a reservoir. It releases only small amounts at a time, so that your intestines and the intestinal enzymes released from the pancreas can easily digest it. It's no problem. The small intestine is specially designed. It was designed by Elon Musk. I'm just kidding about that. I'm just kidding. It was designed to absorb as many nutrients as possible. It's about 20 feet in length. It has 320 square feet of absorptive area, a tremendous absorptive area, and it means that the fruit places no stress on that, and all the nutrients will be absorbed. Another myth is that if you have diabetes, you should eat fruit 1 to 2 hours before or after meals. Again, this is related to the sugar content. But truth is that there's no evidence that eating fruit on its own improves digestion. You might have heard that some fruits have enzymes. For example, papaya has papain enzyme, which is a protein digestive enzyme, whereas bromelain from pineapple has, pineapple has bromelain, which is also a protein digestive enzyme. They do aid in the initial absorption of proteins. So those particular fruits will actually help you digest at least protein. So studies have shown that just 7.5 grams of soluble fiber, which is the fiber usually found in fruit, it can decrease the rise in blood sugar after a meal by 25%. That's a trick. In other words, I've written about this for years. If you eat, for example, a meal containing a lot of refined carbohydrates, and why you be doing that, I don't know, because they're not good for you. But let's say you eat a meal that's or something that's mostly carbohydrate. Without the fiber, that carbohydrate's going to hit you hard. It's going to cause a huge burst of insulin. But if you take a source of soluble fiber with it, which is found naturally in whole fruits, it'll kind of lock on to the carbohydrate and almost turn into a complex carbohydrate where it greatly slows the digestion. By doing so, you get a much less degree of insulin release, which means better glucose control and also less chance of the carbohydrates being converted into triglyceride or body fat. Now, the one truth related to people with type 2 diabetes is that it's probably best they have something called the glycemic index. Now, this is a measure of how fast individual foods hit the blood. The carbohydrate content of individual foods get into the blood. And remember, it's individual foods, not foods combined in a meal. And the highest number is 100, and that applies to like sugar and white bread. In other words, they hit your body very fast. Stuff like baked potatoes, because of the type of carbohydrate it has, which is called amylopectin, is a very rapidly absorbed carbohydrate, hits your body almost as fast as sugar. And that has a very high glycemic index, something like 80. So if you eat baked potatoes alone, it's almost like eating a sugar. However, if you eat it with any protein, or if you add a little butter to the baked potato, it lowers the glycemic index tremendously. But generally speaking, people with diabetes should probably look for the fruit to eat fruits that have what they call a low glycemic index. What is a low glycemic index? That's fruits with a glycemic index with a glycemic index number of 50 or less. Examples of such fruits include melons, pineapple, and peaches, I believe, is also in there, strawberries. These things have a low glycemic index. They don't kick out a lot of sugar. They won't cause a massive release of insulin. So that's another myth. Another myth is the best time of day to eat fruit is the morning. And again, no science behind that whatsoever. Some people say that eating when you eat sugar in the morning, it raises your blood sugar level, so you kind of wakes you up. That's nonsense, because as I said, fruit is not digested immediately. Fruit juice is basically refined carbohydrate. Now, if you take in fruit juice, the sugar will hit you very fast, but why would you want that? I mean, sugar hitting you fast has a much greater chance of stimulating a greater insulin release, and possibly, if you take in more calories than you burn, greater chance of increasing your body fat level. So, it makes no difference when you eat the fruit. There's no particular best, there's another myth that says you shouldn't eat fruit after 2:00 p.m. This was originated in a diet called the 17-day diet. The idea is that eating fruit or any carbs after 2 p.m. raises your blood sugar, which your body does not have time to stabilize before bed, and which leads to weight gain, which is just complete nonsense. That's, again, not based on any digestion science known to man. Any carb-containing food will raise your blood sugar as the glucose being absorbed, but there's no evidence that your blood sugar will be raised more after 2 p.m. than at any other time during the day. So, is there a best time to eat fruit? That's the other side of the coin. Again, eating fruit with a meal will make you feel full longer, so you wind up eating less, and it may promote weight loss. I wrote an article in my Applied Metabolics, which subscribers can find in the online article archive, which tells you that beside all the factors in fruit, besides dietary fiber, and there's other factors in fruit, such as various polyphenols, that will actually promote body fat loss. So that's something to take into account too. So I think that's really, let me see how long this, it's 20 minutes, so I'm going to end it now. I'm at the 20, I always try to aim for about 20 minutes for these videos. And I'm out right now. I'm at the 21 minute mark. So I'm gonna spare you people and from further intense information, and I'm gonna end it here. But I just want to let you know, I mentioned my Applied Metabolics publication, and if you really want more information, very in-depth, evidence-based on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research you can use today, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, the most effective fat loss techniques, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't. And I quickly want to add, I am not, this is a rarity of what I'm about to say, I am not associated in any way with any food supplement company in the world. This is a rarity because 9 out of 10, what am I talking about? Like 99% of these information videos that you see on YouTube, whether it's exercise-based or nutrition-based, most of them are pushing some company supplements. Either it's their own supplements, or else they're shills for supplement companies where they're paid money to push their this company's supplements. Basically, they're infomercial videos. As you can see, I don't mention any products. I am, and same with my Applied Metabolics. I tell you the 100% truth, based on absolute science. So I have no axe to grind. I will tell you which supplements work, which supplements are a total waste of money. By doing so, you will save a lot of money. I also cover women's health and fitness. I don't forget women. How could you forget women? Anyway, I cover women's health and fitness needs, specifically for women. So there's things that do vary when it comes to exercise and diet related to women's physiology. I cover that, and so I cover actually more topics than any other digital publication that I know of. And furthermore, I don't think there's any digital publication that exists that has about 62 years of study and experience that I have, that it's incorporated into Applied Metabolics. I was a bodybuilder myself. I've been in the trenches. I wrote for bodybuilding magazines. I was an editor for over 10 years for major bodybuilding magazines. I knew all the top bodybuilders of the time. I know all the tricks, all the secrets. If you want to call them secrets, it's kind of a silly word, but anyway, I tell you all about this in Applied Metabolics. And believe me, no matter what your level of expertise or education, after reading Applied Metabolics for a couple of months, you yourself will be an expert. Trust me, this is a perfect publication for people that want solid, evidence-based information and want to educate themselves, want to know the truth. Very, very good resource for trainers, personal trainers. It'll be a huge asset to your clients when you read the information that's contained in Applied Metabolics. So again, subscribe today. It's www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, send me an email, shoot me an email, and I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where every day I post the very latest information about nutrition, exercise science, and general medical information. I also answer questions from the current subscribers of Applied Metabolics. But again, you have to be a subscriber to get an invitation to that private Facebook group. I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage, again, exclusively for current subscribers to Applied Metabolics, where they can send me short questions about anything they might have read in Applied Metabolics that's not clear to them. And by the way, I write on a 6th grade level purposely so that everything I write would be completely understandable. You don't need a medical dictionary, unlike some of those other digital publications, which read like they're some sort of, professional doctorate treatise to get some sort of degree. They're like as thick as mud. They're very hard to read. Applied Metabolics is written in magazine style. Anyone who could read can understand it. And even if you can't read, the Microsoft, they have programs where, you could put the newsletter on your screen and it'll read it to you. You don't even have to be able to read, but you'll still get the benefit of the information. I realized today that a lot of people can't read. They're completely illiterate. And unfortunately, that seems to be about 1/3 of the nation. So that leaves a lot of people. So, they can read Applied Metabolics in a way by having it read to them. So anyway, I'm getting too sarcastic, so I better stop while I'm ahead. So subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. And if you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. It's been 3 months now. Some of you guys who've looked at my past videos will probably remember my little dog Bruno, who I had for 20 years. He was passed on March 12th at 23 years of age, and I just miss him terribly. I really do. I haven't gotten another dog yet, but that's imminent. I am going to get a dog because I just can't. I got to have a dog. I mean, there's such great beings to have around. They really are very comforting. They're like your best friend. They're so loyal. So if you want to, again, have a best friend, go to your local shelter. There's wonderful dogs there, all kinds of breeds, big dogs, little dogs. They're all just fantastic dogs. They will be your best friend for life. And also don't overlook the dogs that might have a little bit of disability, blind dogs, deaf dogs, maybe dogs missing a leg, or older dogs. These dogs are the most appreciative of all. They're just little angels. They really are. So go to your local shelter. Save a life. It'll make you feel good. It'll make your dog feel even better. Thank you for listening.